All right, welcome everyone. All right, this is Gavaskar Reid from the New York City Department of Education, Career and Technical Education Department. This is our third and final Automotive and Transportation Commission meeting for the school year. I am joined with me, some of my co-hosts today, Nicole Chen. She's been in charge of our marketing materials. Thank you so much, Nicole. And as you see folks entering, can you just do me a favor and admit folks to the room for me? And also for those of you who are following along, as a reminder, every material, every slide, every piece of presentation you need, everything is always made available in a very organized manner to you on our CTE public drive. And I'm gonna ask Nicole to just drop that link into the chat box as well, bit.ly/transportation 05-11-22, today's date. If you visit that link, you will see all of the slides, all the handouts, all the materials for today. This meeting is a meeting that we have to make sure that there's a proper linkage between our education system and industry. So we invite the unions and the non-unions. We invite the public sector, the private sector, the nonprofit sector. We invite colleges. We invite any individual, any company that wants to be a stakeholder within the work that we do within career and technical education. I remember before I got to the central office, I was working in the private sector and I used to be invited to these meetings myself. And then long story short, I ended up working on the inside. And I remember in the very, very beginning, we used to have these meetings where on a good day, we would have maybe 10 to 12 people. But these days, on a bad day, we would have at least 30 people. And this commission has greatly grown over the years, and we've been able to do so much wonderful work together, from creating articulation agreements for our students or providing work site visits and field trips, providing internship opportunities, recruiting industry partners to become CTE teachers. We've done a lot of fantastic work. This commission is chaired by two stellar individuals from the industry. Keith Kerman, Department of Citywide Administrative Services. He's no stranger to us. And also joined by our co-chair, Daniel Cordoza from Metropolitan Transit Authority, Department of Buses. And I'm just gonna turn it over to Keith in case he has a few words he wanted to share with us. Keith?
Okay, thank you very much. Good to be with you all. I sent Gav some slides that you can distribute. They have some links that we wanna mention, but just a few things. One, we're very excited about the Automotive Summer Internship Program 2022, and that's getting going. I believe interviews are going to start this or next week, and we're looking forward to getting students back in the garages. We do have civil service tests, and one of the slides I sent the link. So the auto mechanic civil service tests are coming up in June. The sign up, the enrollment is coming up in June. My understanding is the auto service worker will be right behind that in July or August. So we want to make sure that that information is getting out to students or to anyone who's interested in either test. There's also a supervisor of mechanics test. We sent a couple more hybrid vehicles to Grady High School. And so I think we're up to 21. And I know the police department's sending out some more engines. So we continue to grow the resourcing that we're sharing. And I like getting them as hybrids, and that's always helpful. If you didn't see some of the public announcements, you know, our electric fleet's growing and growing, and you know, we have our new Mach-E's, including at the police department. We're buying a lot of all electric cargo vans, 350, buying 1,350 electric vehicles. So we certainly want to see, to the extent possible, curriculum and student education moving more and more toward hybrid and electric as much as possible. Love to see an ASC program. I'm gonna just keep talking about it till it comes into existence, focused on the hybrid and electric ASC. I think that would be really great to do. And then the last thing I just want to mention is we have on May 18th and May 19th our annual Vision Zero Fleets Forum. And that's virtual, so you can all participate in that. And that's in what I sent Gav to distribute. And then on May 26th, come to Flushing Meadow Park 9 to 2 for our annual fleet show. It's always a lot of fun. It's free. There's usually food. There's lots of vehicles. We have a Hope program. So 9 to 2, Flushing Meadow Park, the Unisphere, May 26th. And other than that, I just want to thank you all again for letting DCAS be involved and look forward to participating.
Thank you, Keith. And thus far, we have at least 2 schools that have expressed interest. I know Transit Tech and Westinghouse, they both plan to stop by the fleet show. I'm going to be there myself. And all of the information that Keith just shared, I'll be sure to email it out to everyone in attendance today, as well as all the schools. All right, Danny Cordoza, you have any words to share with our commission?
Sure. So the MTA will also be over at the fleet show. We'll have one of our electric buses there. The MTA, you know, we still continue to struggle to hire new employees. We're going to take another look at the apprentice program. We used to have one due to budgetary issues, you know, it went away, but we're starting to look at that again. So hopefully I'll have a better report on that in the future. But certainly the Department of Education is doing a great job. I met some students recently that came to visit us from Transit Tech. Very nice young men and women who are in the automotive program. So, you know, keep up the good work. Hopefully we can recruit some of those people, and I look forward to seeing some of you at the show.
All right. Thank you so much, Danny. All right, so as a reminder for all of our CTE staff members, school staff members on the line, if you want to have any sort of connections with any of the industry partners or featured panelists today, just let me know or feel free to reach out to the panelists as well. I always keep the chat box open in these meetings in case you want to connect with other folks, whether it's within our schools or within industry at the college level. So feel free to connect with whoever you seem fit. The chat box is always open. All right, so for the first part of this meeting, I'm just going to run through some a presentation dealing with labor market. Some of this stuff is really more so for the DOE folks in the room, so I'm going to try not to take up too much time with this. After I'm done with this presentation, we're going to move on to our actual panel discussion, and then we'll do a Q&A afterward. All right, so goals for today's meeting, we are going to talk about the updated career and technical education labor market tool, because every year we have to do research to keep in alignment to the needs of industry, to make sure that we are not running antiquated programs within our education system. So we try to have these meetings to analyze the data, hear feedback from our featured panelists and various industry partners about what exactly is happening in the industry. And these meetings are to help our school staff members reflect on how to align their program to this data, as well as how to respond to specific labor market data that may come up in various internal paperwork that we do here within our CTE world. We're going to walk through this newly developed CTE labor market tool. I also emailed it to everyone. I'll be sure to email it again as well at the end of this meeting. We're going to hear from our featured speakers and schools about industry trends, and we're going to focus specifically on the automotive, aviation, and maritime industries today. And of course, at the end of the panel, if anyone has any sort of announcements or updates or any sort of opportunities for collaboration that you want to share, whether you're from a school, you're from industry, or wherever you're from, that's an open mic time for you to share your updates with us. Why is labor market data important for our CTE programs to understand and engage? Well, firstly, you may have heard this term many times. Chancellor Banks, he talks about the North Star. And anytime you hear that phrase, is referring to the concept that each and every one of our students need to graduate with a plan and a pathway to a rewarding career, long-term economic security, and equipped to be a positive force for change in our communities and in our city. And everything that we do within the CTE world is all about being in cohesion with that vision. And we want to make sure that we prepare our high school students for either post-secondary education or in-demand careers in industry that result in living wages within New York City. And for our CTE teachers and work-based learning coordinators that are on this call, this is not just a random meeting, and this is not just random information. You can use this labor market data in one of three ways, either through your self-study process or your program approval forms or your Perkins application. All right, so for the non-school people who are on this Zoom call, our CTE programs have to go through a state approval or state reapproval process every 5 years. And one of the questions that has to be answered in this paperwork is to describe how current labor market data has informed their CTE program design and the choice of the technical assessment or the examination that they use for their CTE program. So school folks, anytime you come across your internal paperwork and you're doing your self-study stuff within your CTE tracking system, you can use this labor market data. Same thing when you're filling out your program approval form. Again, there's another question there about how does labor market data inform your programs? You can use the labor market data that we are discussing today. And for the old timers that call it VITEA, it's now Perkins. So Perkins is a funding stream that's used to support our various CTE programs throughout New York City. One of the application questions asks, how does your CTE program align to labor market needs? And once again, you can use the data that we are presenting today. Now, for the industry folks who are on this call, you may be wondering, okay, what is the relevance for me? What does any of this matter? Keep in mind that the students who are coming from our high schools, that's essentially your future talent. And we need to hear from you. We need to hear what skill sets are you looking for in your entry-level employees so that we can do our job as an education system to properly prepare these young people. And we need your expertise and your perspective so that we can more sufficiently understand and interpret the various job market data that we come across. If you see the acronyms NYCDOE, NYCED, that's us referring to the state education department. I'm from the city level. These commissions are city level. Our CTE programs have to go through a state level of approval or reapproval. What's included in this data we're going to talk about today? We're going to talk about current hiring and long-term employment data, specifically focusing on aircraft techs, automotive techs, and the maritime industry in terms of boat and ship captains. And we are going to talk about who's being hired in this field. We're going to talk about post-secondary planning as well. On the labor market attachment, at the very end, you see there are lists of various colleges and apprenticeship programs that you can send your graduating 12th grade students to so that they can continue on in this sector. And within the labor market tool, there's also a reflection guide as well that helps you to interpret the data. Where does this data come from? It's a combination of sources. We use the labor market information system, labor market information services rather, LMIS for short. They pull info from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, as well as the Department of Labor, the US Census, and Burning Glass. So all of this info together is what makes up the stats we're gonna look at today. Just keep in mind, not every single high school CTE program is addressed in this data, because I do recognize that within this automotive and transportation portfolio of schools, we have transit technology, we have supply chain management and logistics. So we're not covering those particular aspects today. So this is not an end all be all for all CTE programs. And also keep in mind that the data that we're discussing today, it's not evergreen. It's going to continue to evolve. Things are going to change, especially as we emerge from COVID. And finally, the tools show us the trends, but not exactly why behind the trends. And hopefully in speaking with our panelists today, we can get their insights as to why some of the labor market data shows what it does. You can also use various other sources such as Career One Stop, New York State Department of Labor, or the US Bureau of Labor of Statistics to collect data if you want to just keep up to date with what the different sectors are looking like. All right, so the first chart that I wanted to show before I jump into the panel discussion, it shows the current and projected employment for our three focus occupations in New York City. We're looking at a 10-year time period here. And I especially want to hear from Tawana and Devin and Lewis as we talk about aircraft mechanics and service technicians. So according to this data that was pulled by the Labor Market Information Services, they said that they expected a 1.4% growth for the job titles of aircraft mechanic and service technician. I want to hear your feedback, what you think about that. Does that sound right? Does that sound low? I mean, I have
That
my
sounds
own
low to
feelings.
me.
Yeah,
Hi,
it sounds low. Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds low to me as well. So I'm gonna get to you, Tawana, in a few minutes, but I absolutely agree with you. It does sound low to me as well. And for the automotive service technicians and mechanics, and this is where I want to hear from Caesar, as well as our chairs, Keith and Danny. These guys are very, very involved in the fleet industry, in the automotive industry. This one, it said that there's a minus 3.9% expected decline for auto techs. Again, I have my own opinions about that. We're going to hear from our panelists what they think about that. And finally, we're going to hear from Charles and Conrad when it comes to ship and boat captains and operators and other maritime careers. There's expected to be an 8.3% growth for these titles. All right, so this is just a snapshot of what the labor market tool looks like. And once again, if you just look in the chat box, my wonderful assistant, Nicole, she is dropping down the links. You can just click on that link and follow this data along as well. We're gonna look at some of the other charts in a little bit. I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. All right, and I wanted to give our panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves. And first off, I'm going to start with the aviation industry. And Tawana Carter, it's my privilege to have you here in our commission for the first time. And I'm telling you, for those of you that know me, you know that I live on LinkedIn, and Tawana is just one of the best industry partners I was able to come across, because I'm always looking for more aviation partners to support the work that we do. So Tawana, can you just introduce yourselves to our guests today?
Sure. My name is Tawana Carter. I'm a talent acquisition specialist for Redwing Aviation, which is a business jet company. So we're a charter. We also do pilot training, and we're a repair shop. I've been in aviation recruiting, not that long. I've been recruiting for over 20 years, but I just focused back on aviation because I went to high school that had an aviation program. And I do remember firsthand seeing my friends get their pilot's license at the age of 18 before they got their driver's license. And to still be friends with them today and to know that, you know, he makes over $250,000 a year, it's a pretty good thing. So aviation is a pretty good field.
Excellent. Thank you, Tawana. And next, I want to introduce Louis from NYPD Aviation Unit. And by the way, Louis, I must say, I never knew that there was an aviation unit. It's not until you told me about your background that you're from one of our CTE schools. I'm like, oh, wait a second. So you actually went to aviation high school. Can you tell us about yourself and your background for our guests?
So I'm a sergeant in the NYPD Aviation Unit, specifically a maintenance supervisor. You know, so our mechanics are, you know, our police officers, and I'm a graduate of Aviation High School. That's where I got my airframe and power plant licenses. And actually, most of the cops and mechanics that we have here are actually graduates from Aviation High School. And what's good about Aviation High School is you pretty much graduate high school with the licenses, the certifications that you need to become an aircraft mechanic. So a lot of the guys here got their certificates when they were still in high school, and now they found a good job in the police department working as aircraft mechanics. So, you know, to come into this unit, you need to have those licenses. They can be very expensive to get. You know, people get them in college or professional schools, but, you know, Aviation High School, that's where we get most of our mechanics. You know, I would say more than 50, we got about 25 mechanics here. I'd say about way more than maybe 60% of them are from there, including
that's amazing. And it's so glad. I love when we get to have alumni from our programs in these commissions. So thanks for joining us, Sergeant. And finally, I'm going to feature another guy that sometimes you guys confuse us, but you can see that we're now in the same virtual meeting at the same time. So we're two different guys. I just need Kendall to be here so that you can see that me, Devin, and Kendall are three different guys. Devin Ragbeer, tell us about yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Devin Ragbeer, graduate as well of Aviation High School, former teacher at Aviation High School, former Central DOE employee, and now a pilot at Republic Airways. So I've done the maintenance aspect, and now I'm doing the flying aspect. First time at a commission meeting, just trying to absorb as much as I can take in and provide some feedback for what I see and what I hear. directly in the field. A former employee of Delta Airlines, is still an employee of Delta Airlines for the past 11 years as an auto mechanic, ironically, with an 2 years with an aviation mechanic at Delta. So I'm here just to, again, try to provide some feedback and input of that 1.4 is definitely way too low for aviation industry.
All right, thanks, Devin. So, by the way, it's not your first time at the commission. Maybe as an industry person.
As an
but
industry
it's
person,
definitely-
correct.
All right, so
wearing a different hat today.
yeah, definitely. All right, so glad to have you three with us. All right, so so that's the first thing I wanted to tackle, and I wanted to hear from you first, Tawana, because I feel like, Tawana, you shared my passion just now when I saw those numbers. Tell us what it's like to be a recruiter, and what do you feel about this labor market data that says 1% growth for aircraft mechanics? Does that sound accurate to you? Tell us why or why not.
It sounds completely off to me. Last year was one of the most lucrative years for the private jet industry. Our company itself, 18 months ago, was bought out, majority owned by Vista Global. In the past few months, they've purchased several companies. We've doubled our staff. There's a lot of growth that's going on right now. And when you think about aviation, it's one of those industries that's growing because more and more people are traveling. Most of us are familiar with the commercial aviation because we can afford those price points. When you look at private aviation, they've now created it so that the price points are a little more achievable or accessible by the average Joe. So you don't have to be the top 1% of the 1%. So what that's doing is introducing an entire new industry to the public. And that industry in itself is growing. So the need for mechanics is going to grow, as well. And that 1.4% just seems extraordinarily low to me.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Louis, what do you think about that projected the labor market growth?
I feel like it's a little bit. I think it's pretty high, the labor market growth. I think that 1.4%. I think it's much higher than that. It seems like now is the best time to join the aviation field, whether pilot, mechanic. It really is. I know all sorts of people that moving very quickly as pilots, and same thing with mechanics. So I'm a pilot myself. Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay. All right. So, Devin, you're familiar with, we have at least 2 schools in this commission that deals with aviation. What would be your recommendation for a young person that says, you know what, I want to get somewhere in the aviation industry? Is one pathway easier than the other, whether it's to become a pilot versus doing something in airport operations or doing something as a service tech? What kind of advice would you give to a young person that wants to get into the industry?
I think what we have to remember is that we can't really isolate these industries. So aviation high school, I have near and dear feelings to it. We can't only be mechanics. So there are many facets to the aviation world, right? Delta Airlines they have lawyers, they have marketing, they have so many different aspects. So in terms of just specifically the aviation mechanic technician or becoming a pilot, it really is a journey. I never thought I'd be flying commercially. I never thought I'd ever leave aviation high school. At one point, I wanted to be principal of aviation high school. So the journey definitely has its twists and turn. What I would say for the schools that, aviation high school has been around for a long time. And I know there were the pilot program at K Lane. I'm not sure of the school exactly, multicultural, I believe it is. We have spoken about that has a aviation program. It really is about mentorship and bringing industry folks into the building,
Mm-hmm.
And having career day or just allowing the students to engage in a conversation. Because again, you start this journey and you may not be a mechanic for the rest of your life. So the numbers are definitely low. I'm curious to know if this chart is only for New York City, as it says at the top. 1.4 for New York City itself may be accurate. Overall, from the statistics that I looked up, it was 11% to 14%, somewhere in that ballpark. And we all know there's a huge shortage of mechanics, because and that trickles down, right? So you have above the wing, below the wing, and in the airplane. So pilots, flight attendants are in the airplane. Below the wing are your, GSC, ground service equipment. There's electrical technicians that take care of the belts. And, again, I'm speaking specifically from Delta Airlines. These are $100,000 jobs, right?
Mhm.
Straight out of high school, with either A&P or automotive certificate. My coworkers at Delta definitely made over $100,000. And then you have managerial positions who, students who are interested in more of the corporate end of it. Those internships and those mentors, I think it behoove us to get some of those folks into the building, not necessarily the ones always with the wrenches, but the ones that are
Mhm.
talking about projections and, okay, how do we calculate a cost per seat mile, or how do we hedge on fuel? And, there are students in our buildings that would benefit from some of these transferable skills. So you can say, hey, yeah, I have my A&P, but I'm really a business mindset, or I'm really into reading law, So I hope that answers. I mean, it's kind of a broad answer, but
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And yes, so the labor market information here, it is specifically for the 5 boroughs of New York City. And that's not to say that, the numbers wouldn't look drastically different for the rest of the United States. All right, so let's just move on. I want us to take a look at the chart 3 of the labor market tool, where so what the labor market information services did was that they pulled from a number of different job listings, various job seeker websites that are on the internet. And the findings were that the majority of jobs within the aircraft mechanics and service technician sector, no experience was mentioned, like no experience required. I want to hear from our panelists to get into this field. Is this some? Do you feel as if these stats are accurate, where the majority of jobs out there, it's open to entry level? Is that the case for a young person that wants to become a service, an aircraft mechanic, a service tech? Is it that are they going to hit a headway coming across jobs that says, no, you can't do this because you need 5-10 years of experience? Or is there ample opportunity to get into these fields as an entry level person?
You can get into these fields as I hired A&P mechanics as well as belt maintainers, the airport grounds, as well as for aviation. Your main ticket to get in and to sit at the table is having the A&P license. That's, for most people, I can't have a conversation with them until they have that A&P license.
Okay, and Louis, is that a similar situation for NYPD aviation unit? Are you guys open to accepting
Yes.
someone as long as they have the cert, the license?
Generally speaking, our requirement is the airframe and power plant license. The one exception we make every now and then is with the military. If they get their sign off from the military that they can test for the A&P, we'll take them. But our requirement is the A&P. Yeah, everyone has to have it just to walk in the door or interview.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. All right, so let's take a look at chart 4. This chart is about the entry-level wages and the in-demand skills for these occupations. So in pulling various terminologies from the various employers who listed job openings online, communication came up as the #1 skill needed. And this happens to be the case across the board for automotive, maritime, and many other of the non-skilled trade sectors as well, followed by troubleshooting/problem solving. 21% of the ads mentioned the ability to lift, 19% mentioned leadership, and 19% mentioned operations. Can you just, I'm just opening this up to any of the panelists. Do these sound like the most in-demand skills your sector is looking for? Or is something missing? Is something overrepresented? Is something underrepresented? Can you just give us some more insight into what are the employability skills you guys are looking for somebody who wants to become an aircraft mechanic?
Well, definitely, I'm looking for mechanical skills. Troubleshooting is up there. Communications is key if you're communicating internally. Those are pretty much, that's pretty much it. As long as you have the mechanical ability, you're able to communicate with multiple people, with different across the enterprise, in different areas. So you may not only speak to someone in the maintenance department, you might speak to someone in flight ops. So someone who can put out there what it is that they need in a clear way. Yeah, so I would agree with this. And you are lifting, oh boy, 75 pounds.
Okay, very good. All right. So what about operations? Because I mean, my father, he spent 21 years as a operations agent for Fort Lauderdale Airport. But some of our folks in the audience, they may not be familiar. Like, what exactly is operations? And I'll open it up to anyone as well. What does that mean within the aviation world?
Want me to go in? That can
Yeah,
mean a lot.
yeah, sure.
Well, that can mean quite a few things, right? So we have in our operations, that might be someone. So we have a maintenance planner, maintenance controller, then we have the maintenance department. Then over in operations, we might have, working with our flight operations, a revenue management analyst. We might have a flop operations analyst as well. So operations for us is, I don't know if I would put that as like a key. I mean, working with different people, but operation skills, I guess having a better understanding for phase maintenance and what the organization itself is going through and has to go through. So for that, I can see it being important.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
I think there was a huge push at some point, if I recall correctly, and the catchphrase was soft skills and interviewing skills, and I think part of the communication aspect is not just being able to talk verbally. It's kind of like, are you showing up on time? What is your demeanor at work? And communication could also be nonverbal, like you're receptive to feedback. So those, aside from having an A&P certificate, that'll just get you the interview, but it won't really necessarily land you the job unless you can go into the interview and prove or lend yourself to like a very adaptable situation. Because if you work at a charter, it's much different working for a 121 or a commercial carrier, or if you're working at a flight school. And in terms of operations, there's so many facets to this industry. I mean, it can be endless.
Okay, so interestingly enough, we're all on the same page that the A&P license is a mandatory thing. But funny enough, when the job ads were pulled, that did not specifically come up from the listings. Driver license came up, but A&P didn't. So
Because
I
not everyone
actually,
has it.
so what is the expectation? Like, are there companies that provide the A&P to candidates?
Mhm. We have a mechanic apprentice program because we were finding that we weren't getting people who had the A&P license. So we had to create, same thing with the maintenance controller, we had to create a maintenance training program. Maybe if you're tired of turning wrenches, you want to do something else. So I've seen it across the board. A lot of companies are implementing these different sort of training apprenticeship programs because people, they may have the skill set, especially if they were in the military, but they don't have the A&P.
Okay, that's very interesting. All right, so and
Gavin?
yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
if you don't mind, I mean, Tawana makes a very good point as far as the military, but also it was just too quick. But I think the Sergeant Lewis, he was talking about the military, how they get credit through the military, and I got to tell you, when Devin was also talking about soft skills, it just highlighted a couple of things that we talked very much about, and that is the old cliche of, you'll get hired certainly with the hard skill, but you could get fired not having the soft skills or lacking them. My thing here is very clear. We do have students that basically will pick up a license. Like, for example, I have a student that's 17 years old going to Alabama, and he's going to be taking the Chief of Staff Aviation Scholarship Program, which is he's going to go to basically a flight school for 8 weeks, going to pick up his pilot license, but he doesn't have a driver's license. So there's a lot of things that are happening that are certainly great, that are happening with our students at the high school level. But you can just imagine that this student that we have will be actually picking up a scholarship, a 22,500 flight program, where the Air Force is picking up the tab, and he still doesn't have a driver's license. What I'm trying to say here is that my sergeant has A&P. All that is great. The thing is how do we introduce this to more students to pick up and benefit from this? Because we do have a shortage in pilots as well. That's, I know that was a 3 cents worth, Gav, but I wanted to get it all out.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And this makes me ask the question. can someone explain why exactly the driver license is necessary for this industry? Because as a high school student or a high school teacher, we may be thinking, wait a second, you're flying planes or you're working on planes. What is the connection between me needing a driver license versus me getting this job? Can somebody explain why is this an important credential in the aviation industry?
Two reasons. You're on an air. My office is inside of a regional airport. So you have to have for security reasons, you're going to get your FBI background check and all of that as well. Also, at some places you may have to drive around. We required a driver's license because you have to drive around the Jeep. So same thing for like the baggage maintainers as well. They have to drive around the cart. So it's a part of your job function. A lot of our mechanics have to drive around the airport. So if you don't have the driver's license, it's kind of hard for us. But it's also, a lot of it is a security thing. Also, if you have a driver's license, it helps me also identify domestic and international quickly as well.
All right. Very, very good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Because every year, I mean, we haven't done any centralized driver education programs for the past year, but up until 2020, it has been a struggle to convince a lot of our young people the importance of getting that credential. I mean, whether or not the high school is offering it, because they think, I live in New York City, I use public transportation, I don't see the need of getting a driver license. But time and time again, whether it's transportation industry, automotive industry, the construction trades, that's the number one complaint that we receive every single year. Our young people do not have the driver license. All right, chart 5, just want to quickly go over this. We just see the racial diversity within these 3 sectors. Of course, these are very, very male-dominated sectors, but in terms of ethnicity, we see that there's more diversity there. Chart 6, this deals with the percentage distribution of education levels. For aircraft mechanics and service technicians, which are the graphs in blue, we see that the highest graph is for high school diplomas. So based on what I'm looking at here, I'm led to believe that I can become an aircraft mechanic with just a high school diploma. It seems like I don't necessarily need a college degree. Am I correct in saying this?
Correct. Not for us, anyway, as long as, to me, and it's actually a little, what we were saying, what people need in this industry, definitely the shadowing opportunities, being introduced to the industry and introduced in a manner where you don't just see the plane, right? Exactly what Devin was saying, what are all of the different aspects. But I've seen a lot of people get like if they'll get an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree, it's in aerospace technology, but I can't use that. That's great, but I need you to have that A&P. So, and this is something that kids, young people should think about as well. We start our A&P at 26. We have quite a few that makes 53.5. That's well over 100,000. And for many careers, you get a 4-year bachelor's degree, you may not still make that.
Okay, thank you for that. So Louis, is it possible to get a position on your team without a college degree? What's the difference between the folks who have the college degree versus not having one?
Well, to come work in the NYPD Aviation, you need to become a police officer, and you need to meet all the requirements to become a police officer. And then just to get to this unit, you need the A&P. And obviously, they're going to look at your previous experience in the industry, if you have any. And they're going to look at your career within the police department. So, we got dual roles where you're both a police officer and then you come to become an aircraft mechanic or a pilot. We hire, we have both.
Okay, but is a college degree necessary though to be able to join the aviation unit?
No, it's not.
It's okay. See, and what's so amazing to me in these discussions, especially for this commission and the construction trades commission that we have, we still have to fight this narrative where college is the only way. And as we can see from our panelists there, all other credentials matter. So we need to get rid of this mindset that college is the only way. We see that if our young people can get these credentials and get industry experience, they can too have a great, wonderful, meaningful career in these various sectors without having to go the college route. So thank you guys for that. All right, so I'm gonna switch gears a bit here. Let me just stop sharing my screen for a second because I want to now talk about the maritime industry, and I wanted to introduce Charles Fannin. Charles, are you still with us?
Yes, Gav, how are you?
Yes, Charles. So thank you, Charles, for joining. This is Charles' first time in our commission. And by the way, Charles, before I got to DOE Central, I remember I visited Harbor School one time. I was an internship coordinator, and the kids were asking me and my colleague, what are some of the companies we work with? And then I mentioned your company. The class lost their mind. Like everybody was just so impressed that we worked with your company, and they were just dying for internship opportunities with your company. And this was my first time in the maritime field because I wasn't too familiar with the big players, you know. But your company is very, very well admired amongst a lot of our students. So I'm so glad that you've been able to join us today. Just tell us about who you are and give us a quick background about yourself.
Absolutely. So myself, I only graduated from high school, so I understand the perspective that you're coming from. I went straight from high school into the maritime industry. I've been in the field for 14 years now. I started as an OS deckhand. So OS stands for ordinary seaman, and from there I went all the way to captain or master, and then I also have my maritime pilot's license. So my career has pretty much been entirely on tugboats, which is a very, unique sector of our industry. I think the biggest reason why I want to participate in this is I want to increase awareness, because I think that our industry, there's a ton of opportunity and a lot of times people just don't know about it. I happened to meet the right person in the right place at the right time, and it got me into a great career that I've loved, and I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. So if I could provide that same opportunity to somebody else, that's what I'd like to do.
Great. Thank you, Charles. And Conrad, are you with us? Conrad, are you there? Okay, I don't think he's there. All right, so I'm just gonna share my screen, and Charles, I'm gonna ask for some of your feedback for some of this data we're looking at. All right, so let's take a look at ship and boat operators. According to this LMIS data, the Labor Market Information Services data, there's expected to be an 8.3% growth within this sector. What do you think about that? Does that seem like it's too high? Is that too low? Is that well represented? What do you think about that growth?
I'm really excited by that number. I think that we really don't have a lot of exposure. So if we can get the word about our industry out to more people, I think more people will absolutely pursue a career in the industry, because there are many easily attained entry-level jobs with plenty of opportunity. So, if we can get 8% more, that would be excellent in my eyes.
So let me ask you something. Within our CTE world, we only have one one school that focuses on maritime related careers. But let's say I'm a high school graduate. I didn't go to Harbor School on Governor's Island, and I want to get into something entry level within maritime. Like, where should I look? Where would you recommend?
One thing that I haven't seen on any of the information that you've provided or you haven't talked about is a merchant mariner credential. So a merchant mariner credential is issued by the Coast Guard, and anybody that works in the maritime industry has to have one, from entry level all the way up to captains and pilots. Getting that credential issued through the Coast Guard can be extremely confusing. The application process is not, it's not easy. And just to be able to wade through that, that would be a great start. Like, the two things that you absolutely need to start are a merchant mariner credential and a TWIC card, a transportation workers identification credential. But if you gave me somebody that was a high school graduate today that had an MMC and a TWIC card, I could get them a job tomorrow.
Okay, so let's talk about the TWIC card a little bit, because this has come up before. I was a recruiter before, and in working with various ferries and different organizations, many of them required that. Many folks on this call are not familiar with that. So what is the TWIC card exactly? How do you get one?
TWIC card, so it's a transportation workers identification credential. I believe that the whole thing is overseen by the Department of Homeland Security, but basically they have offices throughout the country where you go, you provide your information, an administrative fee, they do a background check, and then they issue this credential. And to get onto any maritime vessel, any maritime facility, you need that credential, and it's a security measure, basically. It was introduced after 9/11, and while it is broadly adopted, I don't think that it's totally utilized. You know, they're definitely, I don't know that it's realized its full potential, the whole program, but it's absolutely necessary to work in the industry. You need a TWIC card. I can't hear you, Gav.
As communications came up as the #1 skill necessary. My internet is saying my internet connection is unstable. All right. The #1 skill that the job ads were looking for were communications. Is that something, can you just tell us exactly what does that mean in your world, in your maritime world, somebody who's able to communicate effectively? Because that's the word we throw around a lot. It means different things in different industries. What exactly does that mean in your sector?
From an operational standpoint, it's a lot of communicating on a VHF radio, marine radio. So if you're a deckhand and you're working on a barge, a lot of times you're giving distances to the guy who's driving the boat. If you're the guy who's driving the boat, you're talking to other guys who are driving other boats on a radio as well. But also working on the boat, you know, you have to communicate with your crew members, and if you're handling heavy lines or dangerous equipment, you have to be able to communicate effectively to get the job done and work together. Those would be some really key points where communication was absolutely necessary.
Okay, and in terms of in-demand technical skills, I see that on the chart here, auditing was mentioned. Is that something that you do in your line of work? I'm wondering why that came up as a top skill.
As a captain, absolutely. There's a lot of documentation that has to be maintained on these boats from the Coast Guard, from the American Bureau of Shipping, just as a quick example, and being able to work through all of that paperwork. So yeah, that's absolutely something I see frequently, but as an entry level, that is a skill that is just, that's something you're going to use later on. It's not an entry level skill you're going to hit the ground running with that.
Got it. Good to know. All right. So just let's take a look at chart 6 for a second. And again, we're talking about the difference between high school diploma versus college degree. According to the job ads that were pulled, it says for ship and boat captains and operators, and we're looking at the green graph on the screen. It seems like the highest green graph is once again for a high school diploma. So is that your experience and observation that a college degree is not necessary for your line of work?
Yeah, it's not. I'm a perfect example. I don't have a college degree, and while I would recommend somebody go that route, just based on my own personal experience, it's not necessary. You can absolutely pursue a great career and have great opportunities without that degree.
All right, terrific. Thank you so much for that, Charles. So as we can see, folks, once again, as we're covering all of these variety of sectors, lots of opportunities there for our young people, and not every one of them wants to go to college. We have a lot of career pathways outlined as we discuss in all of our meetings. Last but not least, I wanted to feature Caesar from BMW. This is one of my main men that I've been wanting to feature for a while. Caesar has been very, very instrumental in helping our CTE programs. I know that he just helped out Thomas Edison the other day with some equipment that that was donated. Caesar, can you just introduce yourself to the group? Tell us who you are.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Cesar Castaneda. I work at the BMW of North America headquarters campus in New Jersey. I'm the regional technical training manager. So what that means is we run a training staff of about 14 people, and our job is to train the technicians that are in the BMW and Mini dealer network. So We trained the dealer technicians. We also have apprentice programs and entry-level programs that are bringing technicians into our dealer network. So we support all of our dealers, again, primarily in the Eastern region, but we are obviously a national brand. So we do get a lot of foot traffic from other parts of the country as well.
All right, great, Caesar. All right, I'm glad to have you with us. I'm just going to share my screen one more time here, and I want to hear from you. And I know that my other commission members have a lot to say. And I also, again, I want to just remind Danny, Cordoza, Keith Kerman, you guys can feel free to jump in as you see fit. I wanted to pull up this chart right here. And this is something, Caesar, to be honest with you, between you and me, I do have some internal fights about whenever I see these numbers. I know my buddy Dave from Suffolk Community College is on the line with me as well, Mike Porcelli, some of my other guys. Let me just make my screen full size here. All right, so I'm looking at this data and I want to know, Caesar, does this look accurate to you? There's expected to be a -4% declination for service technicians. Does that sound accurate to you? Keep in mind, this is New York City, but I want to hear from you. Does that sound accurate to you?
So as a brand, we track these numbers and that does not seem accurate to me at all. We have not seen anything from our tracking of these numbers that suggests that we're going to have a decline in any sector, really. If anything, we're seeing a deficit of technicians needed in the automotive industry, in the automotive service technician industry as a whole, and especially for our brand. We are definitely seeing a deficit. And yeah, to your point, and I know Devin mentioned it earlier, if it's NYC alone, maybe there's something there. But I would say even from our, again, speaking from a manufacturer standpoint and our dealer network in the greater New York area, we are seeing our retail stores, our dealerships grow in capacity and in sales. So in turn, we need more technicians. So those numbers don't, yeah, they surprise me for sure.
So Keith or Danny or any of our partners from DCAS, MTA, is there anything happening internally in New York City? Why numbers would show a decline in the need for technicians? Is that your experience from where you work?
It's not our current experience, but given it's a 10-year window, and I don't know where these numbers came from, but I'll just offer one speculation. In theory, if you were to see a major expansion of all electric vehicles dominating the vehicle market, all electric vehicles have a fairly demonstrable, and we've already seen this, reduction in maintenance needs for pretty obvious reasons, right? There's no engine, there's no fuel system, there's no catalytic converter to steel. We've seen, 65% reduction in maintenance needs on the, we did actually something on Axios. If Eric is on, we can send you the link, but we published on this topic because we have operated electric vehicles 200 volts, about 200 leafs for an entire life of the vehicle. So we've operated them 10 plus years and we published on the maintenance history. So that's the one thing that occurred to me. Again, I don't know where these numbers came from, but if there were a trend, it would be if electrification does grow and become substantial, there is expected to be a reduction in maintenance tied to that.
Okay. Caesar, does that sound like a plausible theory? If there's a decline in the need for technicians anywhere, that the electrification of vehicles would require less maintenance? Is that something that you foresee happening or not?
It's a possibility, and I guess to Keith's point, he was speaking from a fleet standpoint, right? But again, from the numbers that we've seen at the manufacturer level, we don't expect we call it the car park, basically the vehicles that are out there in operation. We don't expect vehicles in operation to hit a high percentage of electric vehicles in operation. I think the estimations we're only going to see 20-25% of vehicles in operation by 2030. So, that's still a small percentage of the vehicles on the road are being electrified, owned privately, obviously, right? So yes, it's likely that those numbers are going to continue to grow, but in the next 10 years, we don't see anything that would say that we're going to see a decline in technician need. And like I said, we're still seeing a deficit for the next 10 years.
Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the job ads and what credentials they require. And I think this has been pretty consistent year after year. Cesar, do you agree that the majority of service tech jobs out there, that there's no need for the college degree? Is this a career that a high school graduate can enter into with just a high school diploma?
Absolutely. And to echo Charles's sentiments earlier, again, I'm an example of that. I graduated from a CTE school in New York City years ago. I entered the automotive service industry via a manufacturer-specific apprentice program, and I've grown my career through that. I think there's college may be needed for certain people depending on their career path of choice. You want to get into management, there might be something that's needed down the road, but not to enter the industry. No, I think a high school diploma and some basic automotive technology credentials should put you in a good place.
All right. So does a entry-level candidate need to have the automotive service excellence certification in order to get a job? Or is it something that they have to already have with them?
Great question. Most places don't necessarily require it. There are pathways, for example, with our brand, there are pathways for you to gain those qualifications or certifications once you're working with us within our dealer network. However, just looking over some of the questions that you had posed to us in previous emails, one of the things to consider for students coming into the workforce would be, it is a very competitive workforce. So the goal for students should be to make yourself the best candidate possible, right? So ASC qualifications or certifications make you more of a standout candidate when you're in those hiring pools. So it's not necessary, but it'll definitely help you stick out.
All right. And so in looking at the in-demand employability skills like maritime and aviation, communications again comes up. Why exactly what does that mean in the aviation, in the automotive industry exactly? Because if I'm in a shop, a customer brings me their car, I fix the engine, I fix the chassis, I fix the suspension. What is the big deal about communication? Why is that an important skill a mechanic needs to have exactly?
So I agree with those bullets there in the man employability skills. Communication, customer service, definitely. I can speak for our brand. We're a very customer-centric brand. And so perhaps, right, and the other people on the call could correct me if I'm wrong, in comparison to maritime or the aviation industry, service technicians on the auto side are perhaps in a closer touch point to the customer than in other industries. So it's more likely that a service technician will be facing a customer than the other two industries, perhaps. So communication, not just from an operational standpoint within the workplace, but also communication and customer service from a customer-facing perspective is very important. Because again, most, especially for the premium brands, you're trying to deliver that premium customer service experience every time they visit the workshop.
How do you feel about the entry-level wage data that says that the entry-level wage is $31,200? Does that sound accurate for somebody who's starting out an automotive career for the first time?
It does. It does. That falls in line with numbers that we've seen also. Granted, there can be great variations between, say, for example, if you're working at a dealership level, I think technicians tend to be normally better compensated at a dealership level than, for example, an independent. And then different brands, just given the product, might change in terms of compensation. And then there's always the payment structure, right? A lot of dealerships, for example, may not necessarily be straight hourly. There could be technicians that jump into what we call flat rate soon after, maybe a year after being hired. And then, their productivity dictates their salary at that point.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you about the ASC certifications for a second. All of our automotive schools, we have 7 of them on the line. They all offer ASC. Does it, do you find some ASC certs more valuable than the others? I believe all of them do the light engine repair. Many of the kids are familiar with the brakes. Is there a specific area that you think are more valuable than others?
That's a good question. It's hard to say it's hard to choose one area over the other, just because obviously it's kind of a knowledge test. So it challenges the knowledge level of the test taker in a given area, right? So different workshops may use the candidates or the hires differently. So I would say it probably depends on what they're applying for. I think as a whole, ASC credentials are definitely something that would put you in a much better place to be hired once you're walking out of a high school, for example, with those credentials in hand and walking into an automotive service shop. Just to give you an example, currently BMW as a manufacturer requires that all of the master technicians are qualified in ASC A1 through A8. So that's the basic requirement for master technicians at the BMW dealers.
All right, let's say I'm an automotive teacher in one of our high schools, and I have a kid where they don't really want to get dirty. They keep putting on the tires backward on the car whenever I ask them to fix it. They still like the industry, but they just don't want to actually be in the garage doing the hands-on work. Are there any other opportunities within the field for them?
Yes, absolutely. Kind of like Devin touched on earlier, there's a lot of moving pieces to the auto industry, especially even within the dealer. Again, I mentioned a lot of dealers are going to a very customer-centric approach. So there is a lot of spaces within the dealership that where you could employ automotive savvy people that may not necessarily want to be doing the wrenching. For example, there are positions at a dealership that need people or the employees to kind of coach the customers on the infotainment systems of their car, right? So I'm sure everybody on this call probably has a smartphone. Smartphones are getting very, very smart. So there's a lot of widgets that go along with that, and our cars are getting equally as complicated to some extent, right? So that's where we have positions in a dealership that could help, that would be customer facing, helping customers deal with the product itself. There's service advisor positions that become the middle person between the technician and the customer. There's a lot of operational aspects in the parts department, right? Inventory keeping, sales, online sales. So there's a lot of things there that to pique someone's attention if they're into the auto industry, but not necessarily the wrenches.
All right, great, excellent answer. Thank you so much, Cesar. Thank you to all our panelists. I'm gonna do my emoji with my clapping hands thing. If you can see my thumbnail, thank you all for that. You guys would have a loud, boisterous round of applause if we were in person. I wanna open it up to all of our teachers and industry partners who are on the Zoom call. Do you have any questions, comments, criticisms, or compliments for any of our panelists, the aviation, the maritime, the auto panelists? Let me hear from you guys. I see, hold on, yes, Michael, go for it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will try to be as quick as possible, but I have a lot to say. First off, a great presentation. Thank you to the presenters, a lot of good information, especially the charts. Especially this is specific, obviously, to Daniel, to Mrs. Carter, to Charles. So I'm a consultant, workforce development consultant, apprenticeship connections. I focus and believe in New York State Department of Labor apprenticeship programs. So these are year-long programs set forth by the Department of Labor with credentials, on-the-job training, custom education. And there are programs in every single one of the things that you guys talked about today. So there is an airframe and power plant mechanic, right? Auto service technician, not Marines, sorry. I had it on my phone, I apologize. Auto body, diesel engine, marine service technician, motorboat, small gas engine. These are 3, 4 year, 5 years in length. Why these are so important is twofold. One, I was on a call this morning. There's gonna be a big push to have all these individuals go to SUNY schools for credit or non-credit classes paid for by the state. So you can actually hire kids out of high school, put them in full-time positions with a guaranteed wage increase for 3, 4, 5 years in length, and have their education paid for by the state. These are New York State Department of Labor programs. So Ms. Carter said she has an apprenticeship program, which is absolutely great, but it's like you're eating ice cream without the sprinkles and the whipped cream and the syrup, right? Like there's so much funding, state, federal, local, for being part of an apprenticeship program that again, the federal government made a big push for it. So I'm just sharing with everyone, both the schools and the employers, the presenters, New York State Department of Labor apprenticeship programs is the key in the wave of the future to connect both what the employers are looking for and as well as the schools. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I really appreciate this. I learned a lot because I'm not very familiar or know a lot of information about automotive. I do know that on Long Island, especially Suffolk Community College is the place to be. And there is one more thing I wanted to share with everyone also. I am working with a company. We are going to create the first ever UAS operator apprenticeship program through New York State Department of Labor, UAS, unmanned aerial systems. So it's for drones. And I know in the drones, we're going to need to get them FAA certified. That's part of their credentials for the on-the-job training, the classroom education. So if anyone has any other feedback or insight about drones or flying drones, would be greatly appreciated. I will put my information in the chat, but thank you.
Yeah,
I
great.
just applied to that
Thank
program for
you.
my son, or a similar one. Yeah, I just saw that. So great job.
Yeah, thank you, Michael and Dave. You got a shout out there, Suffolk Community College. I didn't pay him to say that. Captain Singh, I see you are on the virtual waterfront today. Go for it.
That's right. That's right. Thanks again for making this an awesome commission meeting. I had a couple of comments. I know a lot of feedback here about the data that is presented about job growth is inaccurate across the board. And I'm wondering what we can do to actually firm up accurate numbers. So when I take a look at least at the maritime side, Staten Island Ferry employs 750 workers, and when we take a look at that, that's just one organization. So if we look at it, how can we firm up these numbers? And I know that there's going to be a fair amount of growth, but if you look at maritime, when we've come to these commission meetings, there's a natural correlation with the work that happens in automotive, right? So when I look at boat captains and boat operators, I also see engineers. And so that goes hand in hand. And so when we take a look at the skill sets that we have in our industry, the same avenues are available. And so there's obviously an added Coast Guard thing. So Harbor School is not specific to maritime. I mean, you've heard it here before. They're entry-level positions. You don't need a college degree. You don't need to go to SUNY Maritime. But I'm just wondering how we can make a greater connection, because as we worked with NYC Ferry, Staten Island Ferry, and many of the boat operators, they want to see a strong deck and engineering side, and there's lots of opportunities. And then the last thing I want to say is we've seen a huge decline, and this is brought up in other industry meetings, is the ability to be able to place interns and companies changing policies for 18 and above. And actually, when we started back in 2010 on Governor's Island, we were placing interns in over 16 maritime sites, and we made individual relationships with all those companies. Now we're seeing a decline in that, and it poses a problem. And one thing I would offer is that, and I know MTA and the folks over at Fleet do a really great job at providing opportunities. It would be really amazing to see what contracts the city has with concessionaires to be able to have that built in, to be able to provide internship opportunities and experiences for our high school students.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, Aaron. Aaron, can you send me an email after the meeting when you get a chance? So, because I wanna make sure that Harini and the rest of the leadership are aware of what you just said. So can you just shoot me an email?
Sure, yeah. I saw
Yeah.
Leo Garden yesterday, and I talked to Zaroff about it already.
Oh, okay,
Send it to
cool.
you. Yeah, I'll send it to the other side now.
Okay, great, terrific. Thank you for that.
Aaron, I have a,
yes,
would it, should like Nate at Parks be offering internships or?
Nate at Parks employs 4 of our students as dock masters, and absolutely, they always actually take on. We haven't had a problem with city agencies. It's been amazing that, but the problem is the city does business, EDC does business with many private companies, and building into those contracts the ability to say, you know what, you need to support our job growth. We keep talking about this data about minorities and lack of minorities in this industry, high-paying industries, but the only way to get to that is to get them younger. So if you're capping it at 18, and this is for every field, we know that, we've heard this before. So that's something that I think we should bring up at a higher level to take a look at how the city negotiates contracts to be able to provide those opportunities.
All right, great. Thank you, Aaron. Ken, yes, and Ken, I wanted to go to you as well because I saw you mention something in the chat about registered apprenticeships, which may tie into what Michael was talking about earlier. Go for it.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. Well done, as always. Your meetings are always full of information. 2 components. One is I had a question on the data. Does that data, is that just growth data, or is that having a factor of attrition built in it? Because that does not agree with national numbers or regional numbers on the automotive sector, automotive and medium heavy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Can you send me an email and say that so that I can escalate it? You know, the thing is, Ken, when I was an automotive recruiter, one thing I can say is the way we recruited was not necessarily traditionally through using internet ads. A lot of the times we did in-person career events. A lot of the times we used networking. So the data that we looked at today, all it did was it just pulled from the popular job seeker websites like Indeed and Monster and those kind of things. I don't know about in your world, but when I was in the automotive world, we never really recruited most of our techs that way.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah,
we've got some other numbers that we may want to display at some point in time that are considerably higher than that. And then when you start putting attrition in, those numbers grow astronomically.
Absolutely. Is there something about registered apprenticeships you wanted to discuss?
The other component, and if you want me to cover this in a later meeting, I'd be happy to. We were just awarded federal registered apprenticeships for both automotive and medium heavy, which puts there's a lot of electronic data accumulation that goes in that, both from the mentor side and from the mentor side, the employer side, and that's all transparent data for the employer, the instructor, et cetera, which makes all of our programs stronger. It also allows us to find out where our students need help. And where our mentors need help. We were awarded both of those just recently. We've already piloted those programs and we will be putting them into play for our accredited schools and our employers that want to play in that arena. There's going to be an awful lot of value to it, both on the employer side and also on the student side or the employee side. So something to think about as we step forward. There's also a gradient pays and some other stuff that's tied into that. So it's got an awful lot of merit moving forward. If that's something we want to meet offline on, Gav, I'd be happy to do that as I get more data.
Yeah.
And we can look at how to better implement that in New York.
Definitely. Let's do that.
A great opportunity for our students.
Yeah. Thanks as always, Ken. Any other questions or comments? Industry partners, college partners, industry, school staff.
Are you going to be providing a list of attendees? Because some of the, I've gotten some stuff, but there's so many great resources that you've assembled here today.
I do provide a list of attendees, but I don't provide everybody's email addresses though. But if you wanted to connect with like individual folks, I can help with that if you don't already do it during the meeting. But just let me know who you'd like to connect with. I try not to just send out lists of everybody's emails like
Okay.
that, because it's caused problems
No,
in
no,
the
no, no.
past.
I
Yeah.
completely understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. All right, anyone else?
Hey, Gav, yeah, I just want to say thank you for putting this together from Aviation High School. I really appreciate it. Sergeant Lewis, it's great to see you out there. Devin, come on back and join us as a staff member when you're ready, and then you can take my job in a couple of years after that. It's good to see you. But no, it was really wonderful to see aviation be a big part of this. And I can tell you from my perspective, we have industry contacting us left and right, that there's jobs. Obviously, New York City is a good point about the percentage, but across the country and the world, it's just a huge number of maintenance, pilot. And as Devin pointed out, a lot of our students go into a whole range of other aviation related fields and jobs. So I'm glad you had this as the one of the forefront of this topic. So thank you very much for putting this together.
Yeah,
Devin, Lewis, thanks a lot. Tawana, thank you also for the information on aviation.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, Action, Jackson. I'm telling you, aviation school, I love it. I say to Steve all the time, one of the model CTE high schools we have in all of the country, not just New York City. And Devin, Steve is still young, so you have a while to go before you take over that principal job. But all right, so thanks,
I don't know,
everybody.
Gav, the DOE is grinding us down. So how much more time do we all have? Sorry,
All right.
Thanks.
All right. Any other questions or comments before we go into announcements? Okay, so let me just share my screen one more time. I just have a few quick announcements I wanted to share with everyone. Come on. All right. So I don't see Clem. I don't see anyone from Bronx Community College on the line, so I assume no one is here. Wanted to give you guys an update. They have a brand new facility. They wanted to share some pictures and whatnot, but I guess they're not here today. Next commission. Oh,
Hello?
yes. Who is? Yes,
This is
yes.
Paula
Who is that?
Whitman. I'm a career
Oh, yes.
advisor at Bronx Community College, but you would need someone from the direct department to explain this. But yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks.
But I don't work directly with the department. I just work in helping students find jobs and internships.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Paula. All right, and give our regards to the automotive department at BCC.
Yes.
All right. So our next final commission meeting, as you guys know, I also oversee the Engineering and Architecture Commission meeting. That's happening Thursday, May 19th. That's going to be my last commission meeting for the school year until I stop bothering you guys with those emails. I'm going to have NYCDOE also come to that meeting. That's the New York State Energy Research and Development organization. There's a bunch of different grants out there that I think some of you, whether you're a school or industry, may be interested in. I think that some of you may find that beneficial. So just come by that meeting. I'm going to have them present for a few minutes. You can apply to some of their grant opportunities because there's a lot of needs for apprenticeships and on-the-job training, and there's compensation available for some of you who are trying to put these programs together. So feel free to come by the next meeting. Tuesday, May 24th, Jeff Hall, are you on the line with us? Jeff, I don't know if I saw you. Okay, I don't think Jeff is here, but we are having an electric vehicle webinar on Tuesday, May 24th. I wanted Jeff Hall to talk about that. I'll email that out to everybody. As Keith mentioned, Thursday, May 26th, we are having our annual fleet and equipment show in Flushing Meadows, Corona Park. At least 2 schools signed up so far. You can use this as a field trip opportunity. It's a great networking opportunity, in my opinion. You can have your kids practice how to speak to professionals and potentially get some jobs later on. You never know what could happen. There's a bunch of different exhibitors, and it's just fun to just walk around the park, meet the different companies, learn more about the Vision Zero initiative, learn more about the different components of a car. And it's something that I always enjoy to do. It's a great field trip opportunity, in my opinion. So just email me if you're interested in getting connected to that. As always, we are looking for CTE teachers. Send your resumes to me. Do need automotive repair, automotive maintenance teachers. Also looking for teachers who have background in architecture or AutoCAD or manual drafting. Also need HVAC. We have only one HVAC program in New York City. We have that in the South Bronx. Pete Gonzalez, he's retiring. So we do need an HVAC teacher there. Anybody that you know from industry within the skilled trades, just send the resume my way. It is the candidate's responsibility to get their transitional A, but I'll do what I can to at least walk them halfway there and help them out. And I see somebody's drawing over my screen with the notepad thing. All right, fill out the attendance and survey before you log out of this meeting. So Nicole Chen, who has been very diligent in dropping the links there, please fill it out. If there's anything that you need to announce or say, just say it publicly. Please don't complain to me in private because it doesn't do anything to say things to me privately. All right, I'm just a glorified secretary. Anything you need to say, please put it out here in the open. And if anybody says to me that, Gav, I wish you would send meeting notes after the meeting, I am going to find you and me and you are going to have problems because every single time we do these meetings, I make sure to send out the recording, the presentation, all the links, all the recaps, everything is right there. There's no confusion. I don't know who you guys are confusing me with, but when it comes to me, there's no confusion. I give you nothing but organization. I give you nothing but perfection. So you'll have all the notes, all the links, all the presentations. Everything is right there. All right, publicly available. As always, email me greid10@schools.nyc.gov. Make sure you put the number 10 there because G Reid is Georgia Reid, and she's a woman that works in an elementary school, and she's tired of getting the emails that are meant for me. So make sure you put the number 10 there. And last but not least, I wanted to give a shout out to 3 of my heroes who have spent their pretty much their life devoted to CTE. So Gerard D'Ambrosio of Tottenville High School, Dave Sarnoff, Ralph McKee, and Rafael Guzman of Alfred Smith. I just wanted to publicly acknowledge the work that you 3 gentlemen have done for our young people in New York City over the past 3 decades. I mean, you guys have been doing this work for nearly as long as I've been alive. You know, and I go back with you 3 gentlemen, even before Central. I remember all the times before I got to my position, I used to be there in your classrooms. I used to do the work readiness sessions, and you always made sure to uplift the industry. You always made sure to look out for each and every one of your students as if they were your own kid. We've done so much work together and you pushing internship opportunities and so many resources on them. And I just want to thank you all on behalf of the New York City Department of Education. All your hard work was not in vain. Anywhere I go, anytime I'm on Staten Island, anytime I'm in the Bronx, wherever I am, and I come across so many industry professionals and we start talking about where they learned their skill set from, where did they learn their life lessons from, your names come up all the time. And I know that it's cumbersome and frustrating working in DOE where not every single initiative you want done can get pushed, but believe you me, your work has been extremely impactful in the life of thousands of students over the years. So thank you all. Gerard or Dave or Raphael, if any of you guys are on the call and you wanted to say anything, just feel free to unmute, you know, so that we can just hear from you one last time.
I just want to say thank you to everybody. I want to thank the commission, Gav, again. Thank you for everything. I want to thank everybody here. It's been a ride. It's been a great ride, and thank you. So all I have to say is thank you, thank you, thank you.
I was working with Gerard before he got gray here. I'm looking at Gerard now.
And Keith, make sure you tell Jimmy that I am the better one, because he will tell you that he's better than I am, but just remind him that I'm better than him.
Thank you, Jerry. Dave, I don't see Dave or Raph. Oh, Dave is on. Dave, unmute, man.
Hey, Gav, listen, just thank you very much. I mean, nothing's 100% official yet, but I'm there. I'm at the point. So, yeah, we go back to Grand Associates, right?
Yep.
And still Denzel and Nick, we still talk to them. Those were one of the first 2 students that you really helped out. They're still working and doing great. And like I said, it's a partnership. Gerard and I met, funny, taking the work-based learning course online. We knew each other, but we never knew each other until we took the WBL course together, and we've been doing that ever since. So it's great times, and you know, keep moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I mean, I really love the work that you guys do, and you know, whether or not you stay with us longer or not, I just wanted to make sure that while you are around and while we have this commission, that we just publicly acknowledge everything that you've done. As you can see in my background, the lights are off in my building. I think that's a sign for me that I need to end this meeting. So thank you all. I love the work that I do, and I can't imagine doing anything else. I absolutely love the CTE world. I speak about you guys all the time. I mean, I love this commission. Even when I go out on my dates and my romantic relationships, guess what I talk about? I talk about you guys. That's what I do all the time. I love what I do, and you guys are the absolute best. And I feel like anything I've accomplished is because I stand on the shoulders of giants. So thank you on behalf of New York City Department of Education Central Office. Thank you to all the principals and APs and work-based learning coordinators, industry partners, college partners. Thank you for everything that you do. Anything you need that I can assist with, you know where to find me. You have my cell phone number and my email. Reach out to me at any time. Enjoy. Take care.
Yes. Gab, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Gav.
Thank you all. Thanks, Gav.
Thanks,
everybody.
thanks, Gav. Hope to see you soon. Frankie.